this evening. We are pleased to have a couple great speakers with some great information. And so without further ado, we'll get started. It says here to remember to sign the attendance sheet. So if you didn't sign the attendance sheet, please do that before you leave tonight. So our Vice President, Bob Hubeck, had an accident today, so he was going to give a little bit of the history. And Joanne, are you going to give that or Gary?
I'll do it.
All right.
Gary, fill in. Where are you, Gary? Hi. Can you hear me if I stay down here?
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay. Bath Homeowners Association started back in the 1960s, and it started as a response to the County of Summit, who thought it would be brilliant if they brought, as they ran the sewer line through the valley, they thought it would be a great idea to run a couple of trunks up through Bath Township so that people could tie in water and sewer. That was met with a certain amount of resistance by people who formed the Bath Homeowners Association. As part of their dealings with Summit County, they were trying to find out why Summit said they needed it. And they would give one excuse, and Bath people would say, well, no, nobody's asked you to expand it, so that isn't why you're here. And then they said, well, we're going to do that because we're worried about the water quality. We're worried about you having a septic system. We're worried about Yellow Creek. Unfortunately for Summit County, there was a professor at Akron who did water testing and education. And at that time, the water in Yellow Creek in the spring was as pure as you will find in a swimming pool. It met the swimming pool restriction test. So then the response from Summit County was, well, that's the way it is now, but as you build more, it's going to become burdensome. So that is when Bath Homeowners Association started the discount program for septic owners. And the idea was you spent $10 and you got $20 off of your septic cleaning. And that would encourage people to keep their systems clean and go forward. The Bath Homeowners has also been a conduit for information. During the elections for trustee, you'll find us hosting candidates' nights, providing information, answering questions. The other thing that we do is we're a conduit. If people will come to us with questions and complaints, and we tell them where they need to really ask those questions and complaints, because that's not our business. The other thing that we do is we try to support as much as we can possibly do other Bath organizations, nonprofits like the Bath Business, Bath Volunteers for Service, Gamma, Garden Club, things like that. What did I forget?
Thanks, John. Moving on, I'd like you all to welcome John Schulen. Many of you have probably already met him earlier this evening and had a chance to talk with him, but I'd like to formally introduce him. Many of you may recognize him as the proprietor of Schulen's Jewelry. For our meeting tonight, John is wearing a different hat. He is the president of Summit County Astronomy Club. Thanks to his energy, interest, and salesmanship, Bath is home to a world-ranked, NASA-recognized amateur astronomy observatory. Please give John a warm welcome and a round of applause.
I didn't know I would have brought a longer speech if I knew I was speaking. On the other end of Iowa Road is the #7 rated beginner amateur observatory in the world. Because Bath is known for its high altitudes and clear skies. But we have a world-class observatory that's handicap accessible with 8 significant scopes, a number of portable scopes, specialty scopes too, with different aspects of the sun. And all of our programs are free and open to the public. And we want people to come out. We want kids to come out. For instance, I have one junior at Revere High School, And we have her studying YouTube videos on how to drive one of our telescopes. So when she comes out, she'll be operating that telescope. So she can say on her resume, I operated a major telescope at a world-ranked public observatory. That's what college people don't see every day. And myself and kids get into college that way. So it's a great program. Jessica's going to get a nice asset to the observatory now that the weather's very nice. But I'll bring some cards in my car on the way out. If you want to get some information on how to find out when we do programs, because we're weather and volunteer dependent. So we use meetup.com, which is a free site. And if you sign up for Meetup, they're going to try to sell you a site. Ignore the sales pitch. Just join Meetup and search for Summit County Astronomy. I'll give you some cards on that. And that way you can get notices when we're open. It's a great facility. It's still underused in my book here. When we have a clear night, we should have 40, 50 people out there. We have 8 telescopes. And what's nice is everybody, instead of like the observatory, you stand in line, you look at the one telescope and everything's out of focus, you can't touch anything. We show you how to use the telescopes. They're easy to use to get them in focus, and the things we see are beautiful. We have a beautiful preserve out there. We have a 1.3 mile walk from the sun to Pluto. Each step is 1,000,000 miles to scale. So your Fitbits will go crazy, and we'll have a good time out there. Thank you. Hope to see you standing in the dark. We also do Sunday programs where it's Sunday and we look at the sun. Thank you.
Next, we have 2 great speakers tonight. Our first one is our own Bill Funk. He is our Township's planning director and zoning inspector since 2006. His role at the Township is to oversee all planning and zoning findings and to maintain and update the comprehensive plan and zoning resolution. We just finished. Bill's office coordinates the activities of 3 standing boards: the Zoning Commission, Board of Zoning Appeals, and a Parent Review Commission. He has an undergraduate degree in geography and planning and a master's degree in public administration. His personal hobbies currently revolve around his kids' activities, which include hockey, dance, and the performing arts. If and when he has any spare time, he enjoys outside designing and building landscape projects. Tonight, he is going to tell us how to build right and back. Thanks, Will.
Thanks, Laura. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Norma said there's a couple of great speakers. I listened to Mr. Kenny earlier. He was great. I can attest to that. Assuming there's a third speaker after him, because I'm just up here. So, just kind of wanted to give an overview. Zoning permit process really based on this is the homeowners association. That's what's kind of focused on how Bath Township treats residential zoning. Sort of a high level 101 course on residential zoning. So really there's 5 basic types of zoning permits that we issue for residential properties. We have new residential dwellings, residential additions, accessory structures, swimming pools, and fences. As I kind of go through this tonight, I'm going to base most of my conversation on R2 zoning. 80% of Bath Township is zoned R2. Just to kind of take a step back, we have 4 distinct residential zoning classifications in the township. We have our R1, which is a larger lot, 5 acres. It's more than national parks, 7 metro parks, for the northeast corner of the township. Again, our R2 is the most prevalent. It's about 80% of Bath Township is R2 residential. Lot sizes are roughly 1.5 to 10 acres. It's your more traditional Bath Township neighborhoods. Our R3, they're a little bit smaller lots. That's more your Bath Hills development along Smith and Revere Sanctuary. So those are roughly more down to a half-acre lots. And then last, our R4 is more of a condo development, so a denser type of development. Condo developments typically 4 units per acre. So think your Sparrow Pond or Shores Pond. That's the main 4 zoning that get into business. But again, I'm going to kind of skip over like we don't have any business zoning, just focus on the west end. So basically, that R2 is what everything's going to be. So again, one of the topics here is residential dwelling. So say you buy a vacant lot, say you have some property, family property you split off, and you want to build. I've been here for 20 years. Tell you this process keeps on getting a little bit more difficult as I go along. Typical lot size in the R2 for a newly created lot is 2.5 acres. That changed in about 2000 when we went from 1 acres to 2.5 acres. So majority of our development was prior to 2000. So a lot of the subdivisions that we have are roughly that 1.5 acres. But again, if you're creating a new lot in the R2, it's a 2.5 acre lot. Minimum setback from the front yard is 60 feet. So that is your front yard from the streets. That is not taking into consideration the road right. The road right of way is roughly about 15 to 20 feet off the edge of the pavement. Then you have your 60-foot front yard setback minimum. Minimum side yard setback 20, minimum rear yard setback 50, maximum building height is 35 feet. And then this sort of clause is kind of carried out from everyone. There's also potential other setbacks. Again, this is sort of the 101 of zoning. When you start getting into property by property, you start to get into some other additional information that might impact your proposal. I always recommend call me here in the United States, works with me as well. Call us if you have thought of a project, if it's a few years down the road. Feel free to call us, give us an address. We can kind of look at the parcel viewer map through the county, kind of give you a little bit better idea of some of the issues that you might be facing. So again, I probably said a few other times. Questions, ideas, plan, feel free to give us a call at any time. We're glad to help out and try to make it as smooth as possible. And like I said, the new residential dwelling process can get daunting. There's a lot of other agencies that are involved. So when it comes to building a new home, not only are you dealing with bath township, typically your first step, most of these, is going through some kind of health departments. Majority of the township does not have access to water and sewer. So you are talking about on-site well, on-site septic, or some type of waste treatment. So Summit County Health Department is the regulatory body that oversees those. They will review your site, make sure that it's viable for septic, make sure that you have certain soil types or a certain type of system that you can put on that site, and then there's certain setbacks that are associated with that system. So health department is integral in that process. You're also dealing with Summit County Soil and Water Conservation District when you build a new home. They're looking to make sure any erosion control measures are in place. So in the event of a storm, you don't have basically silt or mud that is encroaching upon neighboring properties. You kind of keep it contained on the site. Obviously, when you're constructing a new home, you have a lot of dirt, you have a lot of vegetated areas that need protection. Also, Summit County engineers come into play. Recently, they've begun issuing grading permits. So they're ensuring that final grade of the property, once you're done with the construction, that final grade is not going to negatively impact the neighbors. Typically, this comes into play with more denser residential subdivisions. When we have 2.5 acres or more, the grading permit is not as difficult. But you get into those tighter subdivisions, it's really important to make sure that where you set to grade your house is not going to basically flood out your neighbors. So that's an important part of the process. Let's see. Summit County Planning Department, they will issue the address. So the address slips all go through Summit County Planning. And then right away access, so to get right away permitted access to the road, either a township road or a county road. So you'd be dealing with the township or the county to get that. All of these permits pretty much require some type of site plan and then construction drawing. So we need to see what you're doing. So a site plan that shows the property boundary, setbacks, anything else that's kind of going on that property. Residential addition, setbacks, very similar to a house. Setbacks, 60-foot front yard, 20 sides, 50 rear, height is 35 feet. And again, we're still looking at that right here, that deep slopes, and then the well and septic setbacks, which goes regularly by the health. Big one, what we see is accessory structures. So I think detached garages, sheds, barns, pavilion, pergola, any of those types of things. So they are permitted either side or rear of the property, so next to the house or behind the house. Minimum setback from the house is 15 feet. And then rear and side yard setbacks are both 20. Maximum building height is 35 feet or less than the home, so it's got to be less than the home. And maximum footprint area for all accessory structures is 1,500 square feet. So all accessory structures combined, your footprint cannot exceed 1,500 feet. Again, riparian, steep slopes, well accepted. Swimming pools, funny over, since COVID hit, we saw an increase in swimming pools. I can't even tell you, we would do, maybe 3-4 swimming pools a year, and COVID hit, and everyone's putting in swimming pools. For the last years, I feel like we've just issued swimming pool permit after swimming pool. So, they are two located inside the rear yard. Setback is a little bit less than accessory structure, so those will be 10 feet from the home. Side and rear yard setbacks are both 20 feet. We do require fencing, or if you have over an acre, you can do an safety cover that is locked in lieu of fencing. Those are just recently added. They were part of the Ohio Building Code. Our township just recently added to the zoning resolution. Again, for over an acre and a half, they have to lock them to meet certain standards. Fences. So 4 foot front yard, 6 foot in the rear yard. The front yard to have at least 50% visibility. So think of like a picket style fence or an aluminum fence. And then the rear yard, you can go have up to 6 foot. It can be a privacy fence. We don't really regulate materials, whether they're wood, they're vinyl, there's some type of metal or aluminum. Most cases, they are permitted to go up to the property line. There are some, when you talk about the front yard, if you're talking metal, they should be set back a little bit further just for some safety concerns. One big thing is the good neighbor practice most communities have, and that is pretty side of the fence faces out. So your neighbors aren't looking at all the structural supports and everything. They're looking at the smooth fence side. You get to look at all the structural supports. So the big question is, what if my project does not meet zoning requirements? What if I can't meet what is in the zoning list? All properties are not created equal. All projects are not created equal. So it's pretty hard to create a zoning resolution that can be applied directly across the board without anybody asking for it. That is why you have the Board of Zoning Appeals. So the Board of Zoning Appeals, which is a phrase I used before, it's made up of township residents who are appointed by the trustees. They hold a public hearing process. Basically, when you go in front of the Board of Zoning Appeals, you submit your application, your plans, any type of exhibits. They can take public comments. The neighbors can come out, they can go on screen, or they can report. The board will take comments, listen to all the exhibits and everything. What they require, though, from the applicant is practical difference. They require a reason for you not being there. That reason cannot be, oh, that's just what it is. It has to be a solid argument as to why I can't meet the thing. I have an irregular lot. I can't meet 20-foot setback because my house sits at the back of the lot. It's a pie shape, and I can only meet 10 foot on this side and 5 foot on that. So there's no practical reason that you can't just move a building. They really lean on that practical difficulty. So the better the reason, the better the chance, I would always say. Obviously, it's case by case. Again, that goes through a whole public hearing process. Neighbors get noticed. They have ample time to come to the meeting. They can speak out. They can call me, let me know ahead of time, and voice their concerns. So how do I apply? What we always like to push people to first is the online portal. Again, with COVID, that sort of changed how we did our application process. It's easy. Go online, go to bathtownship.org. If under the planning and zoning link, you'll see on the left side applying online. It will take you step by step through the process. You can attach your drawings, your stand-in drawings, your site plan, your construction drawings. You can pay on that. If that doesn't work for you, you can email. You can email me the application. We'll put it through the system. That's fine. If that doesn't work for you, fill out by hand, drop everything off. The only thing we ask is larger print. If you can have those scanned in for us and provide us with a digital copy, we can only scan in basically 11 by 17. So we're here to work with you as much as possible, helping you out through that process. So we try and give you as many options, whatever you're most comfortable with. So the typical process when you do apply for a permit, there's 3 basic agencies that are always involved. Suffolk County Health Department, like I said earlier, they look at the sites, where that structure is at in relationship to your well. So there's certain isolation distances that you're meeting the well. There's certain isolation distances you're meeting the septic. And then there's certain isolation distances you're meeting from if you ever need to replace your septic, where that replacement septic is. So they review those. That's typically always your first step. Go there, make sure the location is going to work for your site. Next is come to us with the site plan, application, construction drawings. Finally, you're on to Summit County Building Standards. They issue the building permit and its construction. That is really a kind of high level. Say everything sort of is property by property, so there's a lot of different variables involved here. Always please call us, call me, call Nancy, discuss whatever your thoughts are. Way out there, you're just thinking, way in the future, hey, I might want to do this one. Give us a call, we can tell you, hey, if it meets the code today, we can't guarantee that it's going to meet the code in 20 years, but at least we can tell you, yeah, you're on the right track, or you might want to think about doing it. Leave some time at the end, if anybody's got questions, if they want to about this or anything else, please feel free to ask. It's hard for me to see you, so.
Okay, two quick questions.
Sure.
On accessory buildings, is there a minimum, like if I have a current shed there?
Yep.
And I need to replace it because it's got leaks.
Okay.
Do I still have to go through all this even though I went through it when I put it there?
Yes, typically, yeah. If you're replacing footprint for footprint,
Yeah.
it's one thing. But typically, call me at least, because a lot of times it changes, or something's changed a little bit, and then you will. But then call me.
Footprint's probably gonna be
Yes.
2 feet wider.
Yeah, so that you will. So call me. It's a good process.
My second question is what happens if someone goes rogue? What I mean by that is we've gone through the process
Mhm.
and your neighbor's building, a wonderful building, but now he's outside, nobody's watching what he's doing, and the structure is now ground, and it's no longer within what he applied for.
We're in bad township, what the record is. They're one that they. So if that happens, so if they are going wrong, but they're still in the problem. Say I come in and I say I'm going to build 1,500 square feet. The next thing I know, I drive by and there's 5,000 square feet.
Right.
We're going to make them stop construction back and force them to the board. So they're going to have to go through the variance process. The board of zoning appeal says no. There's a process to where they can appeal that board of zoning appeal petition through Summit County, or they have to figure a way to hit the code.
Which could be tearing down what they built.
Could be tearing down what they built, modifying something. We've gone through that before. We've gone through where somebody built something without a permit. Have to come in after the fact. They go to the BZA. The BZA maybe gives the same footprint, but requires them to do some more screening, different roof style, do some other things out of the wall to sort of soften that. Sometimes it's hard to make them just say, hey, you're just tearing the thing down. A lot of times, sorry, let's work with them, see what's going on here, let's try to figure out the best solution.
Bill, particularly in light to quote the next topic that's going to be the zoning regulations with respect to lights from one property infringing upon another property.
Mhm.
And I read in the zoning law, once it's supposed to be 0 candle power at the property line, which is kind of impractical, I suppose. But if there's a bright spotlight or something coming from another house, is that a zoning issue or is that?
It could be. Sometimes those are top light. Sometimes light toughest one because no typical is I can go out there as a light at the property line. I can look up why is these lights. Is it violating the zone? Not necessarily. Is it also kind of violating the zone? It's kind of one of those tough points to deal with. Luckily, I did get to hear speech earlier about DarkSky. I think there's some stuff we can do to sort of tighten that which we will be doing for shortly. So, a little bit of history. We just got done, just last night actually, with the comprehensive land plan updates. So the trustees just last night accepted. So sort of our next step in that process is to take those recommendations from the comp plan, plus other things that we've seen over the last 11 years or so since we really looked at the zoning resolution, some things like that that have come up and update the zoning. So over the next year or so, that'll be up front. Take those comp plan recommendations, take those, okay, we know we need to change this. Okay, seeing this issue and sort of trying to change some of that stuff up. It's never perfect. I can tell you, like I told you before, every property is different. It's never perfect to really write the perfect code. Everyone can find some work around somewhere, but we'll keep on doing our best to do it. Okay?
Yeah, when you submit for like a variance of 7 by 17, if you do it through the portal and that drawing is really 2 foot by 3 foot printed out, is that all you would need is just that?
Yep, that's all you do. Yeah, yeah, and most of what we do is all digital. So you, like when it comes to the meetings, I have a PowerPoint, I put all your drawings up on the PowerPoint. Everyone can see it as we're kind of going through it. So as long as it's some type of digital thing that represents what you're doing, it works.
I have an easy one. I'm talking about pools. Is the county ever pulled in on that? How do you make sure that they're not putting the pool on the reserved area for the next, field, septic field?
They would. So that's part of the process. Then when they get your help, you go to the health department, they are looking at, again, they look at your existing septic field and where that potential replacement field is at.
Okay, so they are part of the pool
They are part of the
process.
full process. It's on the new home applications, and that's what you'll see. So older homes, you'll get every new home application. I look at the site plan, I see, okay, here's a septic, whether it's a spray field, leach pound or whatever. I'll see where that septic is. And they have on that plan where that secondary backup is. So it makes it nicer. For the newer ones, it's a lot easier, as you can see. Okay, and that's probably been for the last, say, 20 years. The further back you go, zoning permit wise, you go far enough back, I got a sheet of paper that's someone's cursor that I scan in and copy a few times. I don't know what it says. Or it's a drawing on the back of the paper with a box, and here's another box, and here's another box. It's okay. All right, looks like it needs something. Later.
No, I was gonna ask, with the new septic systems that are basically EPA mini water treatment plants that we're being asked to put on our property, is there a property anywhere in back that could not have a septic system?
I can't answer that. That is,
Can you think of it?
it's truly, it's a health department, or if it gets to that level. Approval system. I'm sure are there properties out there that are difficult? I'm sure.
Because they don't require fields,
Right, and we have different soil types, we have some.
don't require soil.
Soil type goes property to property, and yeah.
I mean,
And there's properties that are very compact, that are existing properties that go back, 50 years. And they have Yellow Creek right behind them, kind of building footprint, maybe, foot by foot by foot. And in that instance, maybe that might be where they would require it. But again, that's not on me. It's smarter people.
Good questions. Chimneys part of your maximum height?
No, there's some exemptions for like chimneys, cupolas, and a couple other things in the code. So those are not those, and I don't know off the top of my head, but those can be higher.
How about the accessory structures?
Decks are considered additions if they're attached to the house. Is there a height restriction or? No, there's just so a deck would be, typically we consider a deck addition, unless it's a freestanding deck. But say you do an above ground pool with the throw deck, then that's an accessory. If it's attached to the house, it's an addition. Anything else?
Is there a specific setback from these fields?
It's a health department. I think it's a 15-foot setback, but typically it'll be a health department will be ultimate. Oh, thank you again for having me. I appreciate it. Please call me, call Nancy, any questions. We're glad to help you out with this process as much as we can.
Yes, you run in appearance.
We'll give our next speaker a couple minutes to get himself hooked up here. While we're hooking up, if you haven't gotten your annual membership this year, we have membership applications out there, and Joanne is here to,
And there's envelopes too.
oh, there's envelopes out there as well.
And you get a free month if you sign up tonight.
Oh, you get a free month. I didn't know that. All right, we're good. So here to help us understand how and why we should light bright in Bath is Brad Carey. Although Brad is a professor of economics at Wright State University, in his day job, that's your day job. I need to talk to you now. Tonight, Brad is here with us in his role as Director of Government Affairs for the DarkSky Ohio. In this role, Brad works with city and government officials across the state to advocate for sustainable lighting and dark sky ordinances. He also meets with groups like ours and with educators to help Ohioans develop an appreciation for the importance of dark skies. On Rate My Professor's website, Brad received 100%. I would take his course again from many of his students. His top tags include amazing lectures, hilarious, and gives good feedback and caring. Please join me in welcoming Brad.
If you knew how much I had to pay to get those reviews. So, I think I have 3 reviews, and I think I wrote 2 of them. Yeah. So, before we start, I'm actually going to start off with a little video. This video is actually showcasing Colorado. I believe one of our folks here, yeah, it's your daughter, right?
My nephew.
Lives out here. So there is actually some personal connection to it. The reason why I'm showing this video is so that you guys kind of have a visual of what we're talking about. I closed captions on. I don't know how the sound's going to broadcast, probably coming through my laptop. If you can't hear it, sorry. So.
With all the big light here on Earth, it's getting more and more difficult to see the natural lights in the night sky. Eric Smith traveled to a Colorado town that's changing the view above by going dark. West Bend, Colorado is an old mining town that's rooky enough, quaint, and quiet enough for tourists. This is another aspect of Bay. Across the valley, from the sun-rated Crystal Mountains, formidable Teton-like spires named by the conquistadors. But as beautiful as all this is, see it at night. Yep, that's the Milky Way. On this chilly autumn night, locals gather at the community observatory. It's a
When I came up here on a vacation trip, the first night I opened the back door where I was and looked down, and my reaction was, no clouds on there. But the clouds aren't white at night. It was the Milky Way.
Without a telescope, you can see our galaxy. We're right on the edge of town. Yes, in the Milky Way. Plain as day. That's no accident.
This is the observatory.
Jim Bradley, A retired Denver architect says most of our outdoor light is wasted.
Going nowhere, going up the sky. Not doing anything, not lighting anything, not making anything more secure. Wasted.
Who's a retiree with insatiable intellect, joined with others around here, the campaign started putting colors on streetlights and colors on lights.
Things are just as white as any other town. Just nothing goes up to the sky. Nothing goes down the valley into the neighbor's window because they have foot so.
Drove around with Jim, and sure enough, the streetlights are pretty bright. But Kenny, do they do some others?
Down there are the two towns. So the west.
I'm sorry, you said there's two towns down there?
There's actually two towns.
To be sure, selling the idea of covering the lights has not always been easy. Sarah Shields' family has ranched here since the 1860s.
My mother had said absolutely positively not. We're not having that. Kind of like in her yard.
For the Shields, the lights have always been beacons. Stormy night after attending camp, with Edward hosting from Jim, Sarah finally covered them.
And I could walk out the kitchen door and look up and see the stars. And it was all
The two towns have now been officially designated dark skies communities. Word of the light show on the edge of town has begun to spread. Teresa Katz is part of the Golden Corner.
we started getting calls right after the destination for people to come here and look at the stars. I had two ladies coming in this week from Michigan, driving all the way here to come and look at the stars.
For most of the time, humans have wandered the earth. The night sky has mystified us. Only in the last few decades have we done so much to obscure the heavens. Here, they have taken back.
It's great for the ranchers, it's great for the economics, it's great for the chamber of commerce. But for me, for children, to still have some connection to the sky. That's the best part.
Smith joins me now. Could it possibly be as clear the Milky Way as it looks in that video?
Like, when you're standing there with the naked eye, and oh, by the way, we're right on the edge of that local bowling alley, which is a massive parking lot. We're right there. You just go off the edge. Everything is there. It's so close, it feels like you can touch it. Ray Farmer, the predictably amazing Ray Farmer, took those incredible photography. Yes,
Yes. So it looks to me too like there are now some ancillary benefits to all this. You got people coming around town to look at the stars.
right. You know, let me show you one other thing, because this is a really cool thing. A local veteran, a local military veteran invented this thing. Because if you want to put a flag up and have it up all night long, right? It's got to be lit. He invented this thing. It's solar powered, right? And the light goes down, but it doesn't go up. Because if you let it light, the light usually goes up. So everybody's getting involved now. It's really cool. You know, by the way, all that light that goes up, wasting a lot of time.
A lot of lessons we learned for other towns as well. Harry, thanks so much. Great story. Appreciate it. Always play.
All right. So, let me find my card. Hop into the presentation. Sorry, I'm running through my hotspot and takes a second. Things to start the phone and talk. All right. So as noted before, again, my name's Brad Carey. I work with DarkSky. I also work over at Wright State University. So go Raiders, if anyone's from the Dayton area. And basically, I'm going to talk to you guys about lighting, how this lighting ordinance looks like, what it looks like from the ground, how easy is it, how far, down the pipeline do we want to get, stuff like that. Just a background about Centerville, Ohio. If anyone's familiar with Dayton, it's a little bit bigger than this, than that. We have very similar layouts. Unfortunately, we don't have a national park in our backyard, but a lot of the same demographics, a lot of the same nature reserves, stuff like that. My background, I have statistics. I have a master's in economics dealing with natural resources. I am on track to pursue my PhD. So don't have one yet. So
Don't call me doctor yet. Hit me up in a few years. And then basically my emphasis is dealing with natural resources. A lot of people join DarkSky Ohio to do astronomy or things like that. I did it from a completely different reason. I did it from a case of disgruntlement and dissatisfaction with the government wasting my taxpayer dollars. Okay, so I got tired of all the waste from the lights going up, and I also do astronomy and like fireflies and stuff like that. I was like, you guys are wasting money, so let me go through and get a degree in economics and tell you guys why you're right. So that's kind of my background as to how I got into DarkSky Ohio. We are the Ohio chapter of DarkSky International. Those of you that used to know International Dark Sky Association, it's the same exact org, we just changed our name. Okay. So anyone that's seen like IDA lights or IDA compatible lights, that's us, just different name. Okay. We advocate and advise on lighting to improve safety, effectiveness, and efficiency. Through the video that I showed you, you guys would think that we're all astronomy nerds and want you to turn out all your lights and all that. That's a secondary objective. Our first one is basically to make your community lighting better, so that you don't have lights coming in your windows at night, stuff like that. Be smart, save money, sleep better. That's pretty much why I'm here, right? And we aim to do this while all these. We aim to do all the safety, effectiveness, and efficiency while mitigating the effect on local ecosystems and your neighbors. All right. So I got a question about light trespass. Light going on other properties or in windows. That's what we or advise on. Okay. Topics and time estimates today. First off, when I do this stuff, I prefer audience participation. Please do not save your questions for after. I prefer not to do that. Just ask them up front. We're adults, right? The reason why I don't like doing that is because I don't like doing the hip hop back and forth with my slides. Just ask. All right. Right. Basically, we're going to go over what makes good lighting versus bad lighting, how lighting can improve safety, how it can improve resilience, improve ecosystem resilience, which is big around here, with all the reserves, with the national park, all that. Some real life examples, and then I think Q&A at the back end. Again, just ask during it. If you want to save towards the end, I mean, I can't stop you, but just ask as we go. Right? So this really small print up here kind of talks about what makes good lighting, right? So when I'm standing up here and I talk about, oh, that's good lighting, that's bad. What am I talking about, right? And we have kind of 5 items, right? The first one is the light actually useful, right? And you really need to think about, why are you lighting up this area, okay? What are you trying to accomplish by this? Is this a safety hazard? Is this a case where it's a point of interest? Is this a case where it's regulated, right? Is this a case where you just really like the look of something and you want to showcase it? If that's the case, that's fine. There's a right way to do it. So, but what is the purpose of the light, right? The second is it targeted, all right? So we have a case where we need to light something. You want to see it lit up, or you have a safety hazard, you're at a major intersection, something like that where it merits lighting, right? The question is, are you just lighting up the area that you want to, or are you going to be that person that just spotlights the entire or floodlights the entire area and it looks like you're coming in for landing at O'Hare, right? Don't be that person, right? Put the light where you need it, right? First off, it can be kind of rude, right? If you got your light shining in someone's window, or if you've had that neighbor whose light is shining in your window at night, you can't sleep, you got to put up the blackout curtains, right? It's inconsiderate. The other thing is it's waste, right? If I only have to light up an intersection, why am I taking the time to light up the intersection in the next county over, right? It's just a waste of electricity, of light, stuff like that, right? The third thing we look at is it low level? And what we mean by this is the intensity of light a lower level, right? So a lot of times you can take the light source and dim it and still get the same effect, right? I'm not going to go into the math behind it because I don't want to. But basically, what we see is that the light can reflect off the pavement or the area you're reflecting. In most cases where we're trying to illuminate, it's 10 feet or below, right? That's where people are walking. That's where people are driving. That's where you need the light. You can use a lower illumination, use the reflective effect off the asphalt or whatever you're lighting. And that reflective effect stays in that 10-foot area. You can basically kind of bounce light and get not more light, but get that reflection in that zone and illuminate, right? The fourth one we have is whether or not the light is controlled, all right? That's a fancy way of saying, do you have timing on it and do you have motion sensing, okay? If you can do those on areas, and those will be dependent on the areas that you're trying to do it, right? I'll talk about this in safety, but motion sensing is one of the ways that you can really be aware of what's going on your property, right? We'll talk about it further, but basically if you have a light constantly on, you get used to seeing that light on, you start to ignore it. Whereas if you have a motion sensing light that goes to off, as soon as something walks past and triggers that light, you know, if you're like me, you're like, who is going outside, right? You look, your attention's drawn to it, you're more aware of what's going on outside, right? Whether it's an animal walking past, whether it's someone in your yard, stuff like that. So it's a way to signal to you that there's an activity going on outside that you normally under constant illumination would not get that signal, right? The fifth one we got is form color, right? Basically, do you all know color temperatures? Do I have like photographers here? Yeah, okay. So we aim at 3,000 Kelvin and below. Just looking, these wonderful stage lights might be 3,000. Probably not. Those might, yeah. So the box lights up here, the big ones, those might be 3,000. It might be 35s, but they're close. Generally, it looks a little bit warmer, and it's less intrusive into the sky, into local ecosystems, stuff like that. A good example is, you all remember the old high pressure sodium lights that are kind of yellow? That's about, I think that's 2,700. So it's about like that. There's another aspect called color rendering index, where it affects how like real the colors look. So you can have a warm color light that still looks good like this, where the color reflection is true. Just because you have 2,700 and it looks like high pressure sodium doesn't mean you're going to have an orange glow. It's more based on color rendering index. Yes.
Many of the middle
Are
5,000 K.
yes.
Why?
So the real answer is a lot of those come down because they're trying to imitate daylight conditions, right? So 5,000 Kelvin kind of sits in that range. The problem is if you simulate if you simulate a sun condition 24/7, that's where you get a lot of ecosystem interruptions and a lot of sleep interruptions on you, which is why we're recommending 3,000 and below, is because that more simulates kind of sunset and it's less effective. Basically, what we're trying to avoid is simulating the sun 24/7.
Oh, no. What happened?
All right. All right, let's see if it comes back. So that answers that question. That's what we're trying to avoid, is simulating sunlight 24/7. Right? Now, do I have any more questions about these 5 standards? Yes.
Well, one of the things, especially in the city limit, is when you have
Mhm.
I don't see that are available at like a Home Depot or Lowe's that doesn't light up your next door neighbor's backyard.
Correct. Now,
Talk us through that. Are there more products out there available that are more directional?
there are. A lot of it requires you to go online. You can ask Home Depot if they have DarkSky approved stuff. Through our website, we do have DarkSky approved luminaires, or just lights that will meet that. But I can also kind of explain what I was talking to Bill earlier about. There's some math that you can do to figure out kind of how far your light will go with a shield. But generally, you have to look online and you have to look, I forget how Home Depot has it. I think they still use IDA, International Dark Sky Association tags. but you have to look for it online. It's generally where you find it. So,
Thank you.
all right. Here is basically everything I just said in picture format. Okay. So on the far left picture, you have an unshielded light. This exhibits what we call glare, which is basically if you can see the light bulb directly, right? That is glare. It shines in your eyes. It can mess with your night vision, stuff like that. The next one on the left is a shielded light. If you take anything from this, if the only thing that you do is put full shields and use that term full shields on your lights, you're doing great. All right. If that's the only improvement that you can make, do full shielding, right? If you can't change color temperature, if you can't change the intensity, if you can't put it on motion sensing, put shields on. All right. And that will get you pretty much 90% of the way there. In the middle, you notice that we go from this bright white light to this warmer yellow, right? This is changing the temperature. That's going into the 3000 Kelvin range. Okay. Again, that doesn't mean that when I walk out, I'm going to look yellow. It's going to be color rendering index. So, for example, that light, again, I think is 3500 Kelvin. If you look, people under the light, they look normal, right? They don't look yellow or anything like that. Intensity. Notice I've kind of dimmed the light on this one. That's just lowering the intensity that's shining. And then on the left, timing or motion sensing. Basically, it's off when you don't need it. So areas to illuminate when we're talking about safety. Obviously, you want to illuminate crosswalks. You want to illuminate intersections, stairways, doorways, addresses. You really want to make sure your address is visible for EMS, stuff like that. If you have features on your house that you think are cool, you want to put accent lighting, perfect, do it. Just make sure that that's pointed down and it's shielded, right? You can get some very beautiful lighting with that, and that's okay to do, right? Be proud of your house. That's completely fine. Just make sure your stuff is shielded, stuff like that. Another thing that you can consider is timing. I talked about that a little bit earlier. When are those intersections going to be busy? When are people going to be in this area? When do you need to illuminate this? Look at timing. Again, motion sensing takes care of timing, right? If you know that, I'll try and think of where we ate. What was that? Gas alley?
Gasoline alley.
Gasoline alley, right? So Gasoline alley is jam-packed at noon. I figured that one out today. Good luck trying to get a seat. Luckily, I got there a little bit early and reserved. But, other than the fact it's noon, they would know, hey, we're busy at this time. We need to have illumination, right? So stuff like that. GIS helps a lot. You can use, for those of you that are in development, you can use GIS. For those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about, it's basically digital mapping technology where we can make maps and track metrics and stuff like that. It's a cool tool if you want a hobby, do GIS, I guess. So, makes sense there. There are other safety concerns as well. We won't really talk about exceptions too much, but there are cases where variances are necessary. The big ones are going to be like federal signal beacons, so airports, antennas, stuff like that. If I have a ham operator who, for some reason, has your antenna high enough to mandate beacons on it, well, congratulations, you're exempt because the federal government says so. So, and if you have an antenna that big, call me because I'd like to see it. That'd be cool. Improving safety. All right. This is probably the biggest pushback that we get in terms of questions because our messaging until recently has been really bad. We've been talking about make those skies dark, turn off your lights and all that. Oh, no. Like, I don't want my house to get broken into or, I don't want to trip and fall down the stairs. All right. We've kind of learned that our old way of saying turn off the lights, turn off the lights, turn off the lights isn't necessarily the best, right? So was that a hand or a head scratch? We have seen that studies show that proper lighting improves safety by default, right? From safety aspect, it allows you to observe hazards such as stairs, uneven ground, tripping hazards. Makes sense, right? Illuminate the stairway. You don't want to fall down the stairs. It sucks. I know. I've done it. All right. It also allows you to identify locations that we want to go or want to avoid, right? If you have a sharp turn on the road, or you have something like that, you want to illuminate that most likely so people can see it, right? You can also see the ne'er-do-gooders, right? Hiding in the shadows, and we'll see that in the next slide, right? However, bad lighting, that's stuff where you have glare or, it's super bright or stuff, can inhibit severely your ability to identify stuff that's in the dark, right? Stand in a bright area and try to peer into the shadows and see what's going on. Doesn't work, right? Again, glare is when you can directly see the light bulb, right? And it blinds you, critically impairs your ability to identify threats. I think it's the next slide that we're going to see. Yes. You'll probably have trouble because the screen's small, but can anyone see the person hiding there? And those of you that saw my presentation before, you don't get to say. Does anyone see them?
No.
No? Okay, I see one that says yes. I'm going to change. Now do you see them? Yeah. Let me go back. Yep, off in the corner by the okay. He's still there. You can't see him. I mean, if you want to walk up and look at the screen, feel free. But he is still there. Same exact spot. All we're doing right here is shielding that light. Okay. And basically what's happening is you have that bright light in your eyes, your pupils have contracted so much that you can't really get that light from the dark. It's shining in your eyes. You have a harsh shadow right there. And you got some dude creeping on the corner just staring at you. If you're able to shield your lights, you're able to better identify. Okay. Signal theory also comes into play with this. Do I have any economists or any sociologists, psychologists, anything like that? All right, ma'am, would you like to tell us what signal theory is?
No.
Okay. The signal theory is a concept that we encounter in economics. Essentially, it states that some actions won't occur until someone else takes an action, right? Bystander effect is an example of this, right? So a whole bunch of people see something happening and no one reacts, right? That's an example where we get kind of signal theory until someone makes an action and then the crowd moves, right? Signal theory comes into this in the sense of that lighting occurs. So signal theory with lighting basically occurs when taking actions to illuminate an area for security, so like floodlighting a property, right? Can give you the illusion of someone who has a nefarious intent that there's something worth protecting there. There's a reason why you're lighting that up, right? And it's a reason that makes me want to investigate more, right? Start probing around your property. It also has the side effect of they can see what's on your property. So do I have any of the developers here? You three or just you? Okay. So you have work trucks on property at night? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So essentially, I assume that you have your lot lit up at night. Yeah. So do you have 24-hour surveillance on site?
Yeah.
Okay. But do you have immediate response?
Yeah.
Oh, you do. So you have someone watching 24/7?
Yeah, we go. No, not unless the alarm goes.
Okay. So essentially an example that we can have, and sorry if this is a sore topic, if someone goes in and breaks into his work trucks, right? They might be walking past, have a crime of opportunity, see that he's left an iPad or one of his workers has left an iPad in there that they can see because of the street light, go in, take the iPad, try to hawk it on eBay and get, nabbed a week later. But the crime has been done. He's lost, a couple thousand in windows. He's got an insurance claim, stuff like that. This is another thing, right? AKA, you light up an area, thieves either think or now know that you have something worth stealing, right? And we have several studies that are done by like the FBI, groups like that show that this is a trend for property break-ins. Okay. We also see that a majority of property break-ins occur during the daytime when you're at work, right? So illuminating it kind of is a null point, right? At least illuminating it bad. Now we're going to kind of change track here, right? We're going to go a little bit in eyebrow. Do I have any questions so far? Okay. Economic resilience, right? These dark sky ordinances create resilience in three main ways, right? You decrease the cost of illumination by directing all light downwards, right? We have an estimate done through DarkSky International. Let me throw this caveat. This research was done through DarkSky International. It was contracted through us. Because we are an advocacy organization, we do have an ulterior motive. So keep that in mind with this study, is that we did pay for this study. Okay. But we have estimates of loss in terms of lost lighting and lost energy, basically sitting around 30% of energy expense on unshielded lights. The reason why it's 30% and not like 50% is because sometimes you do have like a top cap that kind of acts as a reflector. Sometimes you have like those big globe lights that just shine light everywhere. So between, having some partial shielding and that's where you get about 30%. Additional savings, basically, if you're able to shield and direct that down, it's not an exactly a 30% saving, but you get some savings sitting around 25%. You have to account for loss on reflectivity. Also, excuse me if you hear me coughing. I promise you I'm not sick. I have a tree pollen allergy, and Cuyahoga is beautiful and filled with trees. So, and it's spring. That's what's going on. Additional savings are gained with motion sensing or timing because the light's only on when you need it. You don't have the 24/7 illumination. With LEDs now, that's less of an issue because they're so efficient. So like on your property, you might save 10 cents a year on it, but on municipal level, that's where costs start to save up, right? The second thing that you have with resilience is increase in property values. So areas of dark sky protections that are near national parks, tend to have a significant increase, statistically significant increase in property values, right? That's significant to the 0.05 level for those stats nerds out there. That's what we're seeing. And basically, that's an increase against non-property values. So we take areas, communities that are near national parks, which tend to be where the dark sky restrictions are, compare them to those same communities that don't have those restrictions, and we do see statistical significance on the increase in property values. The third one is expanded economies and markets, right? So where I come from, we have Wright Pat, right? Wright Pat is a big Air Force base, right? Controls all material command for the entire United States Air Force, right? We also have NASIC and NSIC, which are the intelligence wings for aerospace and space, right? So we have a huge Space Force detachment there. Once we started down in our area of putting in dark sky restrictions and proposing those, the amount of contractors that reached out were staggering, right? Because these are contractors that are looking for areas where, dealing in space and aerospace, they have a clear sky that they can see, right? You get a lot of it out west. So you get a lot of it in Arizona. You get some defense contractors out there. I think Skunk Works is out in Arizona. If anyone's into defense contracting, it's basically a bunch of rednecks that got defense contracts and built really fast planes, right? So they built the SR-71. They're doing a lot of stuff now in the kind of space, upper atmosphere stuff. They're making some cool stuff. They specifically look for dark sky stuff. For up here, Glenn Research, right? You got a NASA laboratory up here. It's a top 10 NASA laboratory. So you have incentives in that case to bring NASA contractors up here that are dealing with optics, right? The other one we face is called astrotourism, right? And these are people that specifically come looking for astronomy tourism, essentially, right? Back in the video, the shop or the innkeeper, she was like, oh, I got people calling me from Michigan to come visit, right? It's that, right? So these are people that want to come experience a night sky, experience, something like an eclipse, the northern lights, stuff like that, right? So these economies are starting to really kick off in the Colorado Plateau. National parks out there are predicting that it's going to bring about 5 billion with a B to their area. Can't say we'll ever meet that because there's other things to do, but it is worth looking at, talking about, seeing if that's an economy that would want to support. Here's a picture, break up the monotony. so I can get a drink. Because this pollen's killing me. Side note, the rise of Instagram and TikTok and every other vein of social media that exists, phone cameras. People are starting to take these pictures and people are like, oh, wow, where is that? That's beautiful. You might get a lot of, I hate to say it, influencer tourism, where they come take pictures, people want to copy that, you get some tourism. All right. We're also seeing that that tends to be one of the more moderate drivers for the astrotourism is the influencer. The big one is nostalgia. So people are like, oh, I remember going out to grandma and grandpa's in the country and I could see the stars. I want to see that. I want to show that to my kids. Boom, right? If you're able to show that, people are like, all right, cool. I'm going to go stargazing. Moving on to ecosystem resilience. Again, if you have questions, call them out, right? Ecosystem resilience, right? Pretty big around here, right? You got the national forest, you have all the nature preserves, stuff like that. Many ecosystems, and by many, I mean pretty much everyone out, depends on proper darkness to flourish, okay? For example, moths are major pollinators. Did you guys know that? Okay, they pollinate. We don't know how much they pollinate because we don't really do moth studies because it's at night and we sleep at night. It is estimated they have a bigger impact than daytime pollinators. So like bees, flies, and all that. Moths and bats are at least on par and suspected to do more than that, right? And seeing as, they require darkness to do that, moths use the starlight and moonlight to kind of navigate. Y'all seen, basically, all right, let me back up. I have a friend in ODNR, right? And she's explained this to me. She's a naturalist and loves moths. But essentially, y'all know when you turn on the outside light and the moth is just doing laps and just going at it. Okay? Essentially what's happened is in that moth's brain, it's confused that light with the moon, right? And it always wants to put its back to the moon. So you got the back of the moth here, you got that light, it just starts doing circles, right? That's why it's getting caught there. Eventually, it just works itself to exhaustion and dies, right? It's a pollinator issue. There's some other issues that we'll see with this. But that's why we're starting to see some moth populations decline, is we have stuff like this. You'll also see it with fireflies. We'll talk about that in a second. Actually, that's in right now. So this artificial light at night, you're going to hear me call it Alan. That's artificial light at night. It's not some dude I have beef with. Alan is artificial light at night. It confuses them off and it prevents them from, doing those natural processes. So a lot of moths will pollinate the oak trees, right? They'll pollinate hickories. Anyone grow vegetable gardens? Okay, major pollinator for vegetable gardens. Anyone have like native plant gardens or rain gardens or stuff like that? Major pollinators for those. Okay. So if you want your plants, even if they're not native plants, even if you just have nice, beautiful landscaping, if you want your plants to do well, keep that off or dim it or shield it as much as you can so those moths can come in, pollinate, stuff. Going back to the fireflies, I want you all to think back when you were a kid. Okay, you all went out and caught fireflies, right? Have you paid attention in the past 10 years to the lack of fireflies? And we've done studies, it's the result of Alan, right? And essentially what's happening is because we have this artificial light, it is drowning out the actual firefly flashing, which is a mating signal. So you have two compounding issues. They can't see each other. So you have population collapse through reproduction there, or they see the light and they think that's a really attractive firefly and they're trying to, do the nice, yeah.
Just a question. Earlier, we talked about what's a good Allen versus a bad Allen.
Yeah.
And if you just clarify that in terms of Kelvin.
Okay, so good Allen artificial lighting is 3,000 Kelvin or below. Okay, so contractors look at 3,000 Kelvin or 2,700 Kelvin is starting to become common. If you look at those, that's good. Municipal guys, I think your streetlights, the lowest you're going to commonly see is 3,000. We're starting to see more in 2,700. On a personal level, I recommend 2700. That way you have a little play upwards if you got something weird in terms of consistency. But 3000. So looking at the fireflies again, a lot of yes.
Well, I've noticed the last 10 years setting up at that nature reserve. First of all, the first 2 years I was out there, 2014, 2015, on a pure moonless night, see the Milky Way like you can't paint the sky. Now it's very difficult to see the Milky Way. And also just the amount of fireflies. You used to see a lot of, now they're very few and far between. In fact, I had some 5,000 Kelvin deck lights I bought. I'm taking off when I get 2027.
Yes. And the big thing that, thank you for pointing that out. The big thing that we advocate is do not mistake perfection with good enough, right? Progress is way better than perfection. Again, if you could change one thing, put it shielded, right? If that's all you can do, shield it, right? If you can do a little bit more, shield, warm light, okay? We're about progress. We're not about being like, congratulations, guys, it's all or nothing. No, you can break it into stages, right? Progress is good enough, okay? Going back to,
Before you leave that one.
Yeah.
John brings up a good point. Where the state lighting is the thing, the vote, you know, what you want to do today for whatever reasons. And people are really lighting up, especially in the newer homes that sometimes are dressing up older homes.
Yeah.
And there's the estate lighting that they're using is up in the 5, 6, 7,000 Kelvin range, which is very harmful to the pollinators, bird migration, and perhaps other.
and you, it messes with your circadian rhythm. It messes with your sleep. Anyone have kids or grandkids they want to experiment on? Here's some unethical thing. Put a blue nightlight in next time they stay the night. Watch how they sleep. All right. Again, I'm not condoning human experimentation. That's very unethical. But pay attention to that. Or without even doing it, let your kids stay on or your grandkids stay on the phone a little bit later at night without the red light filters on. See how long it takes them to go to bed. All right. Now, make sure that you're patient and ready for them to be up all night because they will. But that's that blue light effect, right? John, I
So
saw
as if they say, across the street from the observatory, there's gorgeous homes, and some are lit up really, really bright. And if they're doing it for security, the bad guy's not going to come in the front door. They're going to go in the back door where it's completely dark. So, you know, if you turn it down just a little bit, and maybe as you replace bulbs with a little lower Kelvin, and do it step by step. I've got 2 bulbs and I take out and put in lower Kelvin, and then my deck will be yellow.
Right.
Or
or
3,000 or less.
Yeah.
Kelvin.
Yeah.
Well, you fix the yellow by increasing the CRI, color conditioning index, make it 80% or better yet if you get a higher, if you can.
Yeah.
And that fixes the yellow.
Right.
Okay, yeah, and I mean, the deck lights I have, they're shielded, like on the steps and stuff, are in that right Kelvin range, and it looks just like it does daytime.
Yeah.
Color condition.
Now, looking at more about Alan, the other thing that we worry about is plant health. So I'm going to kind of go through this a little bit faster. If you're keeping that lighting going and you're using the more high color temperatures, so 4,000, 5,000, you're more simulating sunlight, which causes plants to keep their leaves and keep the basically above ground growth going longer during the seasons. So basically during those edge seasons where you have some frosts, but it's still warm during the day, but your trees under natural circumstances have lost their leaves, you can get some more frost damage on your plants. So those of you that are into gardening or landscaping, keep that in mind. If your plants keep getting frost damage, but like plants away from the house aren't, that's probably what's going on, right? From a municipal aspect, another thing that we see, at least down here, I know that you guys get some lake effect snow depending on where you are, right? Up here, like northern part of Bath or the higher elevations, you get lake effect. Okay, so if you have artificial light that's unshielded up there, be aware you may have more tree damage and you may have trees come down, especially on those like edge seasons, snowstorms, ice storms. trees might hold their leaves longer, which is going to allow that weight to come down. So you might have more branches come down, more tree felling. We have that problem a little bit more down south where we have more ice, kind of right on that border. I don't know how bad of icing you guys get up here. Yeah, yeah, okay, all right. So that's something that you should consider is by doing this, you can actually increase the risk of a tree coming down. Municipal guys, if that's the case, you might have a tree go down in the road. So gotta get that out quick. More economic or ecosystem resilience. This is a study that we're working on right now. It's not finished, it's not published. So we may find that this is not true, but everything's looking towards this on our research is the interaction between insects drawn to your lights, your unprotected lights, and the increase of insect-borne transmission for diseases. So basically what's happening, if you have those lights unprotected, you get those mosquitoes and all that flying around more and more. Those lights are naturally where humans are. So you're increasing the risk of exposure just by bringing those insects there. You're outside on your patio, get bit, get Zika, right? By the same effect, it can also draw in nocturnal mammals, not to rag on bats because they get a bad rap. Draws in the bats, you might risk an exposure for something there. Everyone jumps to rabies, but there are other things that are more prevalent that you can catch, right? Again, that is not set in stone. We are still working that research. Please do not go out there and be like, well, DarkSky Ohio said I'm going to get Zika because of my lights.
That's good marketing.
It's great marketing. It is. Yeah, it actually is. So, but that is something where we are starting to see a possible correlation right there. Okay. Communities and places, process dark skies. That is weirdly, basically, what in Ohio are we working on right now? Right, as DarkSky Ohio. Miami Valley. Right. I know I have one person from Dayton, the Dayton area, or has a spouse from Dayton around here. Anyone else familiar with Dayton? Okay. So the geographic area that Dayton's in is called the Miami Valley. All right. Same reason you guys are in the Cuyahoga Valley, right? Well, we have the same thing. We are working from DarkSky Ohio to get the entire Miami Valley under protections. All right. If we're able to do that, we will be the largest area east of the Mississippi. It's 2,200 square miles. We're in the process of it right now. We're working at kind of a county level to kind of work with that. I don't know how you guys.
It's already there.
They're in the process. Yeah. So they're pretty close. Yellow Springs is like the hippie town of Hippie in Southwest Ohio. It's a pretty cool place to go if you're ever down that way. But they're in the process right now. We're working at a county level to get this going. Yeah.
Question.
Yeah.
So if we wanted to see the Milky Way here in Bath, how many square miles do we need to resolve the lighting issues in order to bring us back to that Denver town and to get some tourism in here to see the Milky Way? What are we talking? 2,200 square miles?
Not near that. It's going to be dependent.
I was out in Montana this summer and saw the Milky Way.
Okay, so you know how cool it is.
I've been to Diego Garcia actually, which is like one of the darkest spots.
Isn't that in Texas?
No, it's in the middle of the Indian Ocean.
Oh,
We have a lot of land-based telescopes for Lockheed and the companies you mentioned earlier that do all the near object monitoring from there. But it's like a number 5 on the darkness scale. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But I would like to see that. So like, how many miles are we talking? Is it practical to even?
it's practical. My guess is if you can get the municipalities that are bordering the national forest, your biggest problem is going to be Cleveland.
Yeah. So we're talking. It's the miles.
The answer is I don't know, because that's the first time I've had that question. So I haven't looked at it.
Which of those towns in Colorado are in the middle of nowhere?
Right. And as for square area, that's a question I can't answer. I need to look
at the math you can do to figure it out.
There is, yes. But I'm going to need a computer.
I was curious what you had to say.
So I'll tell you, I'll give you a run, right? So we have a park down in Dayton. Well, down in the Miami Valley called Caesar's Creek. It's a state park, right? It is about 20 miles from Dayton and probably 25 from Cincinnati. You can see the Milky Way, but it's kind of washed out. So if you're trying to just be able to see the Milky Way, get around, a radius of 15 miles, right? You guys are a lot darker up here where you're at because of the forest than we are down there. I will tell you, you're not the only municipality up here we're talking. And there are things in work that I haven't really mentioned yet because I'm still getting municipalities on board. I will tell you, Cleveland has been talking to us seriously, right? So if you can get 10, you'll be able to look up and see it. 10 mile radius. So, holy crap. 63 circular miles, right? Give or take.
Thank you.
There's your answer.
If not, I'll travel the month.
You're welcome. It might be a little bit easy. ODNR properties are on board for this. We're working to get their properties DarkSky. National Parks is already a partner with the international chapter. Hunting Valley is looking at this. So if you guys want to compete with Hunting Valley, it might be worth looking at. And then here's some examples in practice, right? Tucson, they put their protections up. Okay. If you notice that intersection is very well lit, it's bright. Like you would walk through there and you'd be like, yeah, that's just fine. But all their lights are pointing down, right? This is what we're talking about in practice. Here's a stadium in Florida that we worked on. Their stuff is compliant. Again, notice the lights are down. Field's well lit. There's not really much going up. Same field, just different angle, right? This is what we're talking about. These lights are not 3,000 Kelvin. They are 5,000. They're on a playing field. They basically turn them off at 10 p.m. Okay. And then I don't know where this is. It looks like Finland, something that just brings Finland to me. But this is kind of what a 3,000 Kelvin light would look like. Walkways, stuff like that. Again, those are not 3,000 Kelvin lights, but they are shielded. So this just goes to show you can make progress without having to, go for it. Okay. Q&A time. All right. First off, shameless plug. We're always looking for volunteers. I got someone who's really passionate about this. I would love you guys to join DarkSky Ohio. It's completely free and it saves me a 3-hour drive. So yeah, if you want to help, yes, we'd love to have you. Hit me up afterwards. Do I have Q&A though? Anyone that wanted to wait?
Only one time when you fly to Las Vegas at night, you fly over Tucson, you see all these bright cities. Tucson says dull glow. There's the lights down.
Yeah.
The universe.
Mm-hmm. And the Lowell Observatory?
Yeah.
Yeah.
RJ? Back here a little bit. I'm sorry.
You, RJ.
You did speak earlier about property valuing. Maybe expand on that. I think people here would be interested in hearing this.
Okay, so what we've seen is properties near that have these dark sky protections near the national parks, right? We do see significant, again, statistical significance. That's not saying, oh, it's $500,000 worth more. It just means that there is a difference in pricing and it's significant. What we've seen with this is basically the reasons are, A, it looks good. People see it and they're like, oh, that's really nice accent lighting. It's not the point, it's just one of the byproducts of it, right? Second, a lot of people that choose to live near national parks or just end up near national parks have a lot of pride in it. They have a lot of community pride. That community is very close to them. It's very near and dear to their hearts. And so that national park kind of becomes part of that identity. And so being able to go out and protect this and see this and, kind of have that added value of the park, they come out, they see it, and they're like, oh, wow, this is awesome. You get people moving in from out of town and they're like, I would love to just walk out and see, stars. So that's what we're seeing is just, it's the valuation of what people will pay to be able to do astronomy. So that's where that valuation comes from. So we also see added benefits in terms, and these are the indirect benefits in terms of decreased health issues. So one of the major issues with the lighting pollution is it affects your circadian rhythm. It affects your ability to sleep. Over time, chronic exposure is associated with, things like obesity. You put on the spare tire, you get things like diabetes. There's a correlation with some brain diseases, dementia, allegedly cancer. I haven't seen the paper on that one, but you get a lot of health issues that do over time tend to put strain on local resources, EMS, as they have to respond to this. So that's where other savings comes in over time, lower impact on EMS costs. So, good question. What other questions, comments, concerns? Anyone going to chase me out with torches?
One quick comment for you and for John.
Yeah.
How is Starlink and these new satellite constellations, how are they impacting the night skies, going back to the original mission of the dark skies, seeing the sky?
I don't know if I can comment on that officially.
Are you got a contract with those guys?
No. But I am being recorded, and I think we are using something of theirs to do our nighttime analysis. I can say that anytime you put stuff into orbit, and it's highly reflective, it can mess with research and the night sky.
I know the article was trying to make them less reflective, but
Yes.
in the same article, there was a lot of negativity about the number of satellites they're putting up, the competing companies, and what it's going to do to our ability to see through that.
Let me talk to you after the recording. But
Gotcha.
there are strong feelings about that. So,
I see that.
yeah, there are strong feelings that probably shouldn't be put over live broadcast.
Do they impact you in your telescopes?
Well, people get excited when you see lots of.
You can see,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's trains going up.
So one night I saw a robot coming at us. John Landis started probably around midnight. Then right when we got the Zenith, it disappeared. And he said, "What was that?" I said, "Well, either we're going to find out, or we're going to be on the cover of National Enquirer."
Yeah.
And we never really took those down.
Yeah, there's quite a few sightings of them, especially when they're new and launched. They're a lot closer together.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it looked for a while, was the space looked like the right length to be the bigger blimp.
Yeah. Very interesting. Thanks for that.
You're welcome. Like I said, I'll tell you after the recording is turned off. So, yes.
So you were here last night. Is there any, right? They're back to see at nighttime. Is there any like sort of big areas within the township you think that like an area to explore?
So as a township, you guys are actually doing okay. I've seen way worse. There are, again, I'm not very familiar with your roads. There are some developments that I've seen that I feel bad for the neighbors because the lights appear to be coming in pretty harsh. But you guys are doing well. And that's something I want you guys to take back is as a community, you guys are pretty good. For you guys, what I would recommend and suggest is definitely look and use your voice with your trustees to look at lighting codes. And I've met with Bill about this. Well, yeah, you were there. I'm sending some information over so that you guys can choose whether or not you're going to do this. Doing stuff on a building code and applying those lighting codes would be a good one. Shielding your lights is the other big ones I would suggest. But Beth, you guys you're pretty good. I think your big problems are more with your neighbors, and that's something that I'm working with. Cleveland. So Akron's got some issues, but Cleveland is some. But you guys are doing all right. So make a couple changes. And, if you guys choose, I've talked to the zoning board or planning board. Who did I talk to? Zoning. All right. If you guys chose to go for dark sky status, a dark sky community, which would bring in the tourism, if you guys chose to do that, there'd be a couple things that you guys would need to do, but it would not be a major overhaul for you guys at all. You're pretty close. Again, shielding and temperature, and you're pretty much good. So, yeah.
Would that mean that a resident doesn't want to do it? Would we be forced to? I'm all for it.
I can't answer that. So our big thing is we want municipalities to figure out how they're going to do it. We'll advocate and we'll educate, but we will not ban. Okay. We have found that community involvement is way, way, way better and way, way easier than just getting, the stick of enforcement out and just beating your citizens with it. It's way easier to talk to the neighbors and say, hey man, like, did you know that we're trying to become a dark sky community and, trying to save the fireflies and all the other hippie stuff? Like, and just be like, hey, part of this is, put the shield on the light,
I think the manufacturers just really don't offer the 3K over the course of the past 10, 15 years. You've seen like 6, 7Ks. Like they're like blindingly bright.
Yes. So
Now those homeowners are aware of what they're getting installed. They have the lots of times I get called out to the house to make their lights match the same color spectrum, right? They have some that are pure white, some that are 3000, and
right.
It seems to be a challenge with that for people.
And so, do you work with? Are you guys on the same company?
I don't even like.
No.
All right. So that actually presents a pretty good opportunity for you developers. Are you a developer too? No. Okay. What do you do if you don't mind me asking?
I'm not quite sure. I'm like a handyman.
Okay. That's something that you could do just on a personal level. Be like, hey, yeah, I could change to 5,000, but 3,000, like that's kind of where it's at now. As for the fixtures, if you go to DarkSky.org, and I'm going to send an email to Joanne with all this stuff so she can forward it to the bunch. We do have fixtures that like we link to. Another thing that you can look at for as a handyman, you'll often find that the 3000 Kelvin lights are advertised as bug lights or bug bulbs. If you look at that, that might help.
Yeah, I don't have a challenge to send other folks who don't understand the options available to that challenge.
Yeah, so that could be the torch that you carry. If you want, I can send some stuff to you through Joanne, and just be like, yo, like, hey, do you know that Bath's actually trying to do this? Or, if you guys decide to do it, let me recommend 3000 Kelvin, and I'll just get you a really high color index so it looks normal and you don't look orange.
Right.
So,
Definitely approach that.
yeah.
As a
So-
homeowner, the thing that I found most compelling about Brad's presentation today was he talked about, lighting for safety. And when you have those 5,000 temperature lights, your eyes are so unattuned to the dark, you can't differentiate somebody hiding in your shrubs. You can't differentiate somebody hiding just outside of that lighted area. So it's like screwing for virginity. You're not getting what you want. That's your argument. You may not be able to make it with many of the women you're working with, but
I just want to tell the light bulb I should put in this conversation I've learned not to have a long time ago.
Yeah.
Do I think that?
It's a great dinner conversation. If you just want to spice up the night, be like, hey, what do you think about 3000 Kelvin lighting?
Those are more adjustable these days.
Oh yeah, with the remote.
I just feel like if you go to Home Depot, you pick out a fixture, it's going to be the 5K, 6K. It's going to be this bright new modern LED it looks cool.
Yeah.
But no one takes into consideration the light spectrum it's putting out.
Right. The other thing you can do, talk about slow change over time. You can ask Home Depot and just be like, yo, do you have anything at 3000 Kelvin? They'll say no on site. They'll be like, absolutely not. They'll have it through the website. You just have to, again, I forget what the badge is on it. It's either Dark Sky approved or IDA approved.
I'll look at that sign.
Yeah. You'll know because it has it's either going to be a green seal, that's IDA, or it's going to be the purple one with the 3 stars that you saw at the beginning.
I'll look for that.
Cool. Yeah.
I've seen a lot of licenses at Lowe's and Depot. You can select the color. And so, in my work, of course, I like things more like 5,000 Kelvin. But on my back deck now, I just have 2 bulbs that are 5,000. They're going to go by. I buy the same bulb at 3,000 Kelvin.
Make sure it's shielded too, please.
That's right. Fully sealed.
Right. Definitely water.
So, but that's a good question. I think we started a partnership with Home Depot last year at the international level, so we are starting to put pressure on them. But we do have products on there. They're just not well stocked unless you're like out in Sedona, Arizona. Yeah. So, yeah. Good questions. What else? Concerns? Yeah.
Well, one thing from kids who come out to the observatory tend to become better, so they can just come out and visit much. So if they can walk in their backyard and see the Milky Way, they know there's life beyond their cell phone.
Yeah. Yeah. So. All right, I'm going to hang out for a few afterwards. So if you have questions that you don't want to ask in front of the group, please feel free to come up to me. Otherwise, turn it back to you. Awesome. Thank you.